All right, everybody, happy Thursday. Today we're going to move on into looking at poetry connections to Alice Walker's Everyday Use. So if you haven't read that story so far, you need to go back into the last couple of days and make sure you read it or pull it up on SparkNotes at something. You got to make sure you know what the story is about. All of these poems that we're going to talk today have some sort of connection to at least one part of the story. Your three options are Sister Girl by Olga Samples Davis, Saying Yes by Diana Chang, or Legacies by Nikki Giovanni. So you're going to need to pick one of those today that you're going to take some notes on. So if you choose this poetry options tab, you have them linked right here for you, and you can open those up in Google Drive, I guess. You can type on them. Or if you prefer to print them and handwrite your notes on top of it, you can always use any one of these PDFs. Okay, I prefer this because then you can turn that in later, or you can copy and paste things from it a little bit easier. All right, plus those people that are in class today will be given a paper copy so that they can complete their notes. So either one is fine. I'm going to show you mine. You are going to take notes on figurative language, symbolism, theme, and poetic structure. So if you look at mine, I chose the poem Hoodie by January, I think it's Gil or Jill O'Neill. So I'm going to read it to you and then I'm going to talk through my notes. It's called Hoodie. A gray hoodie will not protect my son from rain, from the New England cold. I see the partial eclipse of his face as his head sinks into the half dark and shades his eyes. Even in our quiet suburb with its unlocked doors, I fear for his safety, the darkest child on our street in the empire of blocks. Sometimes I don't know who he is anymore, traveling the back roads between boy and man. He strides a deep stride, pounds a basketball into wet pavement. Will he take his shot, or is he waiting for the open-mouthed orange rim to take a chance on him? I sing his name to the night, asking for safe passage from this borrowed body into the next, and wonder who could mistake him for anything but good. So this poem was written in a response to, I believe, Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin. And so it's about what he's wearing, clearly. So if I'm looking at symbolism right there, okay, the gray hoodie itself and what that represents. Figurative language I highlighted for you in yellow. So I have the partial eclipse of his face. It's kind of metaphorical, but it's mostly based on imagery of like his face being shaded. The fact that he is traveling the back roads, that's a metaphor. And then, of course, the personification of the orange rim, right? As if a basketball hoop could, speak. Then the symbolism of the hoodie, it's how the world sees her darkest child, which she mentions here, right? It's what makes him unsafe, even though a hoodie or a sweatshirt is supposed to protect you from outside elements like cold or rain. The hoodie is what makes him unprotected, walking alone at night, especially because he is a dark child, right? He's black. So here, the poetic structure is obviously written in 2 lines, so those are couplets. There's 9 of them. It's also written in free verse, which means that it's story-like. It doesn't really rhyme. It doesn't really end at the end of lines, but it ends at the end of sentences. And the way that I read it showed that. And then you'll have to look at yours. Does it have a lot of dialogue? Does it have no punctuation? Does it start the lines the same way? You'll just have to look at the way that it's written. And for theme, I wanted to think about how does this relate to Alice Walker's everyday use. So everyday use is written from the perspective of Mrs. Johnson, who is the mom. This poem is written from the same perspective. They're both talking about, their children and some of the things that they are concerned about with their children. They also talk a little bit about the effects of their heritage, particularly that of oppression. I believe Dee makes that point several times. And so here, this is a result of what happened contextually with Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice. And so I know the fact that he's wearing a hoodie and he's a young man who happens to be black, those are things that make him unsafe. So they both talk about those similar things. So I said, despite a parent's love and guidance, all children grow up and make their own choices. That's part of it. That's kind of what happens in everyday use. Or oppression and racism can take a toll on a family's dynamic, right? She worries about her son. And then the dynamic between the 2 perspectives of the sister, based on their heritage and their upbringing, does take a toll on their family's dynamic. So those are some of the things that I thought about with Hoodie. So when you read yours, make sure you're doing similar things with your annotations. You're going to need them tomorrow. Your attendance question for today, for those of you especially not on Zoom, you need to identify the poem you selected with the title and the poet, and then just summarize it. You don't need to give me, all of your annotations, but just what's the poem about. If you respond to this with something like here, or I didn't read it, or I'm not sure yet, I will be deleting your responses and you will have to resubmit for attendance credit because it will no longer show up in this thread. So those of you that have been doing that and I've been responding to you, that is absolutely unacceptable. That will no longer count as your attendance credit because it's not the task I'm asking you to do. So be mindful, I am monitoring those and I will delete them. If you have questions or concerns about that, feel free to jump on the Zoom and ask me or email me. But emails are not sufficient for attendance. Remember, you have to be on Zoom or you have to complete the task correctly. Okay, do what I ask you to do, even if it's not a right summary or you don't get all the details right. The title and the poet are there for you. You can't mess that up. And it's one sentence. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that was clear on today's discussion board. All right, guys, I look forward to seeing you later. We'll talk about what we're going to do with these annotations in class tomorrow. Have a good day.